ये अपना संजीवन है।
Hi, friends. Let's turn towards the next episode based on the very interesting story, The Enemy, which is penned down by Pearl Buck. So, let's understand what happened further in the story and try to understand what the incidents happened one after another and how the story concluded in the at the end. So it's a quite interesting and kindly pay attention and do listen carefully. Hannah said softly to the injured man that he should not be afraid. He was astonished that she could speak English. Hannah replied that she had lived in America for a long time. The man wanted to speak further but was not able to speak. Hannah fed him gently with a spoon made by uh, porcelain. The man did not want to eat, but still he ate. As Sana fed the man, she said that soon he would become strong. She said to so despite the fact that she disliked him, the man did not reply to her. Sadao visited the man on the third day after the operation. The young boy was sitting, but his face was pale and weak due to the effort that he made while sitting. Sadao screamed at him and ordered him to lie down. He said that the man would die if he stretched himself. Sadao forced him down and inspected the wound that he had operated upon. He scolded the man that he could die if he tried to exert himself. The boy asked Sadao that what would he do with him now. It seemed that the boy was hardly 17 years old. He asked Sadao that would he hand him over to Japanese army. Sadao did not reply instantly. He completed examining the boy and then put the silk quilt on him. Sadao said that he himself did not know what he should do with the boy. He added that he was supposed to hand him over to the police. He also disclosed that he knew that the boy was a prisoner of war. As Sadao saw that the boy was about to speak, he raised his hand to indicate him not to do so. Sadao asked him not to speak and not to tell his name also unless he asked him to do so. Sadao and the boy exchanged glances, and then the boy closed his eyes and turned his face towards the wall. He said okay in a low voice as he felt bitter by Sadao's words. Outside the door, Hana was waiting for Sadao. He saw that she was in some sort of trouble. Hana said to Sadao that Yami told her that the servants would not stay with them if the American man lived there any longer. She also said that Sadao and Hana had been in America for such a long time that they had forgotten their country's priority. Yami and the servants thought that Hana and Sadao liked Americans. Sadao reacted harshly and said that this was not true. He said that Americans were their enemies. He had been trained in such a way that he could not let a man die and would help to save him in whichever way he could. That was what Sadao had done. Hana said that the servants could not understand Sadao's predicament. Sadao agreed with this. Both of them had nothing more to say. The choirs of the house continued, but the servants were vigilant. They were polite but unfriendly towards their masters. One morning, the old gardener said that it was obvious what their master should have done. The old gardener had worked with the flowers all his life and specialized in moss. He had been employed by Sadao's father. The gardener had made one of the best moss gardens in Japan for Sadao's father. He would sweep the bright green colored carpet of the moss clean so that the sharp leaves of a pine tree could not spoil the soft velvety surface. He plucked a flower bud from the bush as he said that his master's son, that's a Sadao, knew very well what he was supposed to do. He added that when the man was almost dead, he should have left him to bleed to death. The cook said disrespectfully that their master was so proud of his skill at saving lives that he did not bother whose life he was saving. She cut the neck of a hen skillfully and held the bird as it shivered. She let the blood of the hen flow into the Visaria plant. The old gardener had instructed her that blood was the best fertilizer for the plants, and he did not allow her to waste a single drop of it. Yemi was worried about the fate of Sadao and Hana's children. She wondered that when they grew up, they would be labeled as the children of a traitor. As Sadao was helping an American, all the people of Japan would consider him to be an enemy of Japan, a traitor of his country. As Hana stood in veranda arranging the flowers, the servants discussed the matter in her presence as they wanted her to know their views about the matter. Hana also felt that the servants were right, but she had some feelings for the injured man which she could also not analyze. She did not like the prisoner, neither was she attached towards him. The day before, the injured man told her that his name was a Tom. Hannah did not like him at that moment, also. She had reacted by bowing her head mildly. She saw that her reaction hurt the injured man, but she did not want to reduce this hurt that she had caused to him because the injured man was a great trouble to her. His presence was a threat to Hannah and Sadao. Sadao was performing his role perfectly. He would examine the wound every day. One morning, the last stitches were removed from the injured man's body, and he would be as well as ever in the next 15 days. In the meantime, Sadao went to his office and wrote a letter to the chief of the police to report the entire matter to him. Sadao started his report, and he wrote that on the 21st of the February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of his house. Sadao had just typed this much of the report. He opened the drawer of his desk and kept this unfinished report in it. On the seventh day after that, two things happened. The servants of the house left in the morning. They had tied their belongings in a huge pieces of cloth. When Hannah got up in the morning, she saw that work had not been done. The house was dirty and the food had not been cooked. She realized that the servants were up to something. She was shocked and horrified when she came to know that servants were leaving. Hannah did not show her feelings to the servants. Instead, she remained calm and maintained her grace as a lady of the house. She paid servants and thanked them for their services. As the servants had been working there for many years, they were crying, but Hannah did not cry. The cook and the gardener were very old employees. They had been employed by Sadao's father and had served Sadao since his childhood. Yemi was crying because she would miss the children. She was so sad that to Hannah after she had left. Yemi said to Hannah that if the baby missed her at night, she could call her. She further added that she was going to her own house and Hannah knew where her house was. Hannah smiled and thanked her for the offer, but to herself she said that in case the baby cried, she would not call for Yummy. The next morning, Hannah prepared the breakfast and Sadao helped her in looking after the children. Neither of them talked regarding the servants, but after Hannah served the morning food to the prisoner of war, she came back to Sadao probably to talk something. Hannah was very worried and she questioned that why they were not very clear about what they ought to do. She added that even their servants were very clear as compared to them. She said that why were they behaving differently from other Japanese people? Hannah wanted to say that the Americans were their enemies. They should not have treated that a prisoner of a war. They should have let him die just like any other Japanese would have done. Sadao did not reply to Hana, but after some time he went into the room where the prisoner of war was resting and spoke very fast. He said that that day the man could get up and stand on his feet. Sadao wanted him to stand only for 5 minutes at the time. Uh, Further, he added that the next day he could try to stand for double the time, that is 10 minutes. Sada also said that it would be good for everyone that the man regain strength as soon as possible. Sada hinted that they wanted to get rid of American as early because he had become a cause of a trouble for them. Sadao saw that his words brought a hint of terror and a scare on the face of the young boy. His face was still very pale and colorless because he was very weak. The boy spoke in a low voice and said, "Okay." It appeared that he wanted to speak something more, but he just said that he wanted to thank Sadao for saving his life. Sadao was very expressionless when he said that the boy did not need to thank him yet. As he spoke this, he saw that the hint of a scare again appeared in boy's eyes. The writer compares the boy's terrorized eyes to that a scared animal. The injury marks on the neck of the boy turned the bright red in color for a while. Sadao thought that what has caused those injury marks, but he did not ask the boy about them. That day, the second incident happened in the afternoon. Hannah was busy with the household work as the servants had left. All of a sudden, she had to perform all the work which she was not used to. She was very tired. She saw that a messenger wearing official uniform had come to the house. As she saw him, her hands went weak and she was unable to breathe. This was because she felt that the servants must have told the authorities that they were sheltering an enemy. Hana ran up to Sadao and she was struggling to breathe. She was unable to speak, but by that time the messenger also followed her through the garden and he stood in front of Sadao. Hannah was helpless and she pointed her finger towards the messenger. Sada was reading a book when he saw Hannah. He looked up. He was sitting in his office, which had a partition in it. The part of the office beyond the partition opened into the garden and was full of a shady sunshine. Sadao asked the messenger the matter due to which he had visited them. When he saw that the messenger was wearing a uniform, he stood up as a mark of respect. The messenger said that Sadao was supposed to accompany him to the palace. He added that the old general was suffering in pain and Sadao was supposed to visit him and treat him as a doctor. Upon hearing this, Hannah was relieved and she said, "Oh." With this, she took a deep breath and asked that was that all for which the messenger had come. The messenger reacted and said all. He could not understand that what else could it be for which he was supposed to visit the house. He asked that that was not enough. Did they want any other reason for him to visit them? Hannah was sorry for her reaction and said that the reason was enough for the messenger to visit them. She did not need any other reason for him to visit them. As Sadao had to accompany the messenger, he went to Hannah to say goodbye. Hannah was in the kitchen, but she was not doing anything. The children had gone to sleep, and Hannah was taking rest. She was more tired due to scared on seeing the messenger, and then she was from doing the household work. Hannah said to Sadao that she had thought that messenger had come to arrest him. Sadao looked carefully at Hannah's anxious eyes. He was very sad and distressed, and he said that he must get rid of the man for her sake. He added that he had to get rid of the man by any means. Sadao went along with the messenger to visit the general. Sadao narrated the entire story to the general. The general, who was very weak, said that he understood Sadao's position because he had also studied in America at the Princeton University, but there were only a few Japanese who had studied in America. Sadao replied to the general that he did not want care for the American man, but as he had operated upon him successfully, the general interrupted him and said, "Yes, yes." He felt that Sadao was a necessary part of his life. As Sadao had been successful at operating on the man, the general felt that Sadao was very skilled. The general asked that did Sadao think that the general had any chance of surviving another heart attack as the one he had that day? Sadao replied that in his opinion, the general could not survive than one of such heart attack. The general said that then in that case he could not allow anything to happen to Sadao. He wanted to say that he needed Sadao and so he would protect him. The general's long, weak, yellowish face became expressionless because he was thinking about Sadao being arrested. He became serious, closed his eyes at thought of Sadao's being arrested, and said that Sadao could not be arrested. Further, he added that if Sadao was sentenced to death, he needed an operation the next day, then who would operate upon him? So the general wanted to say that he needed Sadao, and so he would protect him, and he would not let anything happen to him. Sadao suggested to general that there were many other surgeons in Japan. The general replied that he did not trust anyone else other than Sadao. He added that the best surgeons had been trained by the Germans, and for them the operation would be successful even if general died. He did not care for their point of view. The general added that the Japanese could not combine the harsh nature of Germans with the emotional nature of Americans. So the general wanted to say that they did not have such a person who could combine the harsh nature of German and the emotional nature of an American. He said that if they would have been able to do that, then Sadao could be harsh and could turn the prisoner to Japanese. At the same time, be emotional, not murder the general during the operation. With this, the general laughed. The writer says that the general had a strange sense of humor. He was very witty. Then he asked Sadao that being Japanese, could he not combine these two foreign elements? So the foreigner elements to which the general referring is the elements. Suddenly, the general felt weak and emotional as he was reminded of the problems he had faced throughout his life while fulfilling his duties and responsibilities in various wars won by Japan. The general said that the best solution was to kill the man quietly. He added that he would not be killed by Sadao, but by his hired killers. He would send two killers to Sadao's house that night or any night. Sadao did not need to know about it as the weather was warm those days. He wanted Sadao to act naturally and keep the door of the outer partition of the man's room open. As it opened into garden, it would give easy access to the killers while the man was asleep. Sadao agreed that the idea seemed natural. He added that they did leave the door of the outer partition open at night. The general was over with the talk and so he yawned to show disinterest. He added that was a good thing. He commended that the killers were experts. they did not make any noise and killed the person in a such a way that he bled inside. There would be no trace of a blood on his body. He would even ask them to remove the dead body if Sadao wanted. Sadao thought about Hana and said that that would be very good. Sadao did not let any thought enter his mind as he went into the room where the American man lay asleep. He was surprised to see the man out of his bed.